Hi there, I'm Trish Weeks. I specialise in literacy in subject areas in secondary schooling. Today I want to talk to you about a really important point, which is about a growth mindset for teaching writing. Now, the truth is that teaching writing in secondary school subjects is hard. If you're a science teacher, if you're a history teacher, if you're a music teacher like I am, we didn't become a teacher thinking, oh, great, I'm going to teach writing. We wanted to teach our subject. It just so happens that our subject involves some writing. But in order to be great teachers for our students in our subjects, we also need to know how to teach the disciplinary literacies of our subject. So here we are trying to teach writing, and it's hard and work sometimes, and we're trying different things and we're putting effort in and we're feeling frustrated. I hear from teachers all the time things like, my students don't like to write. My students find writing hard. I don't have time to teach writing. And I want to say today, don't give up, keep going. Research shows that it's really important for all teachers, all subject area teachers, to teach writing, and together we don't have to do writing all the time ourselves. But imagine if a science teacher does a writing lesson on a Tuesday, then with that same class on Friday, it's the history teacher who does a writing lesson. Then the next Monday, it's me in a music classroom. Then the following Thursday, it's in geography. With our colleagues in a secondary school, together we can build up literacy practices that will really help our students improve their writing in all subjects and in our subject too. So, one thing I wanted to talk to you about today is a growth mindset. Writing ability is not static. It's a skill. It can be improved, it can be mastered. It is not something that is set in stone. If you get students in your classroom who are not good writers, I hear you. I'm not trying to tell you that's not the case. What I want you to do is think about a growth mindset for those students and help the students to start thinking about writing as an area of growth for themselves. So Vygotsky called this the zone of proximal development. That is, for each student, the next step that each student can make beyond what they can do on their own, beyond what they can do by themselves, otherwise they could just stay at home. Instead, in the classroom, what's the next thing that you as the expert can help the student learn? We know that a really effective way of teaching writing is the process of scaffolding. It is a process where the students get a model text or an example of what they have to write. They write together in groups in a supported writing stage, and then they can write on their own in an independent writing stage. So when you have a growth mindset, think about students' growth and trajectories as rising throughout that scaffolding process, and it's where they're starting from that's important. So how do we know where they're starting from? You may have past work examples, you certainly will have NAPLAN results, but what's a great way that you as the teacher can get an instant win to know that what you're doing is really helping students to improve? Well, that way is a cold draft or a pre-test. So a pre-test is when you've taught the students the topic and the content, the subject matter, but before you start to do a reading and writing task, ask the students to write an example on their own without your help. So in music, for example, if I want to teach students to write about the elements or concepts of music in our topic of 12-bar blues, first of all, after teaching them about the blues and playing some blues, before we do a listening task, I'll ask the students to get a piece of paper and I'll play them a piece of music and I'll say, describe what's happening in this excerpt of music. Describe the performing media and the rhythm. And without giving them too much extra help, see what they can write. Usually students won't respond too well to this. They might write half a sentence, a couple of sentences, a short paragraph, and it might not be too good. Don't worry. Collect it all. That's your pre-test. That's your cold draft. Then we go into the teaching and learning cycle, the scaffolding pedagogy, where we give students an example of a little paragraph about the 12-bar blues, performing media, and rhythm duration. Then they practice together in groups, writing about performing media, rhythm duration for a 12-bar blues, and then they write on their own about another excerpt, rhythm and duration for 12-bar blues. That's the scaffolding process where they get a model text and learn how it works. They practice together in groups, then they do it on their own. Now, where's the pre-test in all of this? That pre-test the students did before is something you as the teacher can note. How did they improve from that pre-test to their independent writing task? Just say you have students who are not very experienced with writing, not very confident. They may have only written a few words for the pre-test. Hopefully by the independent text time, that third stage, they'll have written a couple of sentences. That's growth. If you have a student who is more experienced, they might have written a short paragraph, but maybe it didn't have enough technical terms, not enough subject-specific terminology, maybe it wasn't phrased very well, they didn't express themselves like an expert in the field. Hopefully, by the end of that independent task, you'll be able to see that they've improved in the way that they've used subject terminology, or the number of subject terms they've used, for example. That's what you can see as the teacher. And how about the students? You could give them back their pre-test and ask the students to reflect on what have you learned, how have you grown from the pre-test to your independent text. When asked to reflect, students will usually notice that they have improved, and that's what builds confidence. It's the confidence and practice loop. Students can't build in confidence without seeing that they have done it, and they can't see they've done it without practicing. So they need to practice often and be given the opportunity to notice how they're improving. That builds confidence, and that's a growth mindset. Students will then know that their way of writing or their ability to write is not set in stone. They are not a bad writer. They're a learner. They're improving their writing skills. So help students to think about writing not as their identity, a good writer, a bad writer, but as about a process they can do, a growth mindset, a process of improving. I know that I am still improving as a writer all the time. It's not something we only do for a little while at school, then stop. It's a process that continues through your whole life. Thanks and bye for now.